What was your oh shit, this person is a psychopath moment when meeting people? Went on a coffee date with a guy off a dating app. He seemed quirky while texting, but aren't we all so whatever? Met for coffee, and he got angry that I bought my own its coffee, and while getting to know each other he cheerfully tells a story about popping the eyes off goldfish as a kid, and about watching his stepmom moving into his dad's house through the scope of his rifle. When I declined his very direct invitation to go to his apartment for sex, he got angry and said that he cleaned his apartment, so I owed him at least that much before rejecting him. Then he waited in the parking lot to see which car I got into and presumably wanted to follow me home. I called the coffee shop from the bathroom and told them what happened, and didn't come out until he had been long gone. At a bar in Frankfurt, Germany, talking military stories with a soldier who was a former sailor. We both spent time in Subic Bay, Philippines. He starts laughing as he was telling a story about how a house manager at a brothel yelled at him for asking for a 12-year-old girl. He says at first she looked confused, and then once she found out he was serious he forced him out of the brothel and called him bad person as he just laughed his way through the story. I was shocked and confused and kept waiting for the punchline. That sick son of a bee was telling the truth. I told him that I agreed with the old woman and that he was a F-up person he needed to seek help. We parted ways pretty quickly after that with him accusing me of being gay or something. I never saw him again, but I feel sorry for other people who don't know his true nature. When I was about 18, I helped a friend of a friend move. Dude was a weirdo, but I thought he was okay, did not really know him. He talked about his cat, but I never saw it, thought he was in a cage somewhere. After a couple of hours of hauling stuff, he opens the freezer. There is the cat, jumping out and running for its life. I was so pissed, but the guy laughed and was like, well, it's a hot day and I also did not want it to leave while we moved boxes. Like there was no other solutions. He thought it was the funniest shit. Cat got out and we never saw it again. Hope it did not get frostbites. It was there for at least 2-3 hours. I was in the army mandatory conscription and I had this bunk mate who was not very well educated. We would be guarding the gate of our unit at night from 2 to 6 a.m. and not allowed to leave our post, so I couldn't get away from him. He told me stories of how he strangles cats and throws them off rooftops or plucks the feathers of caged birds and then releases them to watch them fall to their death. There was a cat that lived in our unit, and whenever he saw it he would kick it into a wall, and when she birthed a huge litter, RCO wanted to poison them, and he volunteered to get the poison and fed them himself. The mother cat wailed for days on end looking for them, because she had left them and couldn't find them when she returned because he had thrown them in the garbage after they died. Uber driver on Christmas Eve tried to show me videos of people's corpses after an accident. Roommate meets a dude and invites him over for a beer. The dog would not chill when the guy was in the house. Ears back, hackles raised, continuous growl. An otherwise friendly dog just lit up. It was a very contagious feeling and we were all on edge except the guy, who acted like it was a natural response. Few months later the guy went to prison for the violent assault of a stranger. The face that he had pulled off a mouse, took it out of his pocket, placed it over his finger, and started playing with it. In front of me. I was part of a testing team on a naval base in SA. Met a few lifers including some reses. One in particular stood out, older, now overweight dude with a thick mustache, but apparently in his day was a machine. Dude would calmly describe shooting civilians, children, pets, burning down villages during his years in Angola and other delightful conversation topics. Knew full well it was all sanctioned and he could say what he wanted with no repercussions. Eyes like a leopard seal, literally no light behind them. Growing up there was a kid younger than me. Bright white skin and jet black hair. He had a look. One day he vanished. Ends up there was a small space between the utility shed and fence at his apartment where he hurt animals. Parents moved pretty swiftly from there to get him treatment. This guy said he wanted to join the military to kill people, and before then had been a creep towards women. It's just that the wanting to kill people thing nailed it in the head for me. I got chatting to a girl at work once. We went out for lunch cause she seemed cool, and ended up sitting at the edge of a canal munching sandwiches. There's a pigeon with a gammy leg hanging around hoping to get some food. She lured it closer and closer to her with bits of bread as we were talking, and when it got close enough she just knocked it into the canal. Turned around to me laughing her arse off like it was the funniest thing ever and was shocked that I wasn't impressed. A former coworker would make a point of flirting with propositioning married men. She would really ramp it up if the guy's wife was pregnant. Those are not the actions of normal person. It was the person I was dating at the time. New relationship. It was just the two of us hanging out, and the way that he acted made me think that he thought he was performing for others. I can't quite explain the experience. but it felt truly bizarre and off-putting, like, does this man think he's on a TV show right now? We also had an argument where he was mad at me for something that had literally never happened between us. I asked for an example of whatever it was, and he said he couldn't think of one right now. I genuinely don't think he could tell fact from fiction. He wasn't okay, duh. When standing in front of 600 people, telling them they'd all just lost their jobs with zero redundancy, they smiled. Prick got pleasure from seeing grown men cry. Bible sales lady, who used to go door to door selling special edition Bibles. Lady had those wild eyes. Made all the neighbor kids cry every time she showed up. All she had to do was look at them. Turned out, the lady used to hit the bottle big time. Even gave her husband a black eye. Last I heard, the lady was doing time at that place in Chowchilla, and her husband was living off the grid. Wild shit. I had an ectopic pregnancy which burst, and I was rushed into surgery. When I woke up, the surgeon walked in and showed me a folder filled with photos of the surgery and the fetus he removed. No consent, just shoved them in my face. He's showing me this album with a grin on his face like he's showing funny photos of his pets. I was clearly distressed, and he had zero empathy for someone who just lost a baby. My mom met him and said there's something very wrong with that man. It was like he got enjoyment out of my suffering. I wish I never saw those photos. They are burned into my memory. My first relationship, when I told him I wanted to break up, he showed up outside my college, unbuttoned his shirt to reveal my name carved on his chest with a blade. I was just telling my daughter about this. When my ex and I spent our first time together in the blizzard of 16, we were snowed in. We were really digging each other and took a huge chance knowing we would getting snowed in. Anyway, he is retired military. My oh shit moment was about day 3 of the 5 days when he started cleaning his gun on the kitchen table. But he looked at me with an insane look in his eyes the entire time. That same weekend he also told me if he ever pointed his gun at me, run. Additionally, he showed me his numerous skull tattoos for each person he killed while serving in the military. This random old lady poked me in the eye when I was just standing at the corner of the street. Started calling me names after Elmo. I had to sit next to one of the Columbine shooters through grades 1-3. I hate alphabetical seating. He was a psycho back then.